Hello and welcome back to Saxon Math. This is lesson 74, writing fractions as decimal numbers and writing ratios as decimal numbers. We learned earlier that a fraction bar indicates division, so the fraction 1/2 also means 1 divided by 2, which we can write as 1 divided by 2. By attaching a decimal point and 0, we can perform the division and write the quotient as a decimal number. So if we add a decimal point and then another 0, you see that 2 will go into 10 5 times, and there'll be nothing left over. This would be 5/10. We find that 1/2 equals the decimal number 5/10. To convert a fraction to a decimal number, we divide the numerator by the denominator. So let's convert 1/4 to a decimal number. So that would be the same as 1 divided by 4. I need to attach a decimal with another 0 here. And the decimal comes straight up in the answer when dividing by a whole number. So the decimal will be in this position. 4 will go into 1 0 times. If I was to multiply that, that'd be 0. I'd bring it down. I'd have 10 divided by 4 then, which is 2, which gets me to 8. 8 taken away from 10 is 2. I'm going to add another 0 here, and I'm going to bring that down. Now I have 20 divided by 4, which is 5. 5 times 4 is 20, and there would be nothing left over. So in this case, my answer to 1/4 as a decimal would be 25 hundredths. Example 2, use a calculator to convert 15 sixteenths to a decimal number. So if you were to use a calculator, let's just do that. So in our calculator, we have, in this case, 15 divided by 16. So 15 is the numerator, divided by 16 in the denominator, ends up being 9,375 10,000ths. So 15 sixteenths equals 9,375 10,000ths. So the keystrokes that are required are the 1/5 divided by 1/6 equals. And that's how you would use the calculator. Write 7 2/5 as a decimal number. So if I'm going to do that, I know that it's going to be 7 and something. 7 and, the word and is the decimal. I need to find out what 2 divided by 5 is, because that's what 2/5 is. So I'm going to do that. I'm going to add a couple zeros on here just for good measure. I can add as many zeros as I want. This still equals 2 because the decimal is right there. 2 divided by 5 is 0. 20 divided by 5 is 4. 4 times 5 is 20, and there'd be nothing left over. I don't need to bring any more zeros down because 0 divided by 5 would be 0. This is just simply 4/10. So this as a decimal number would be 7 4/10. You can use a calculator to check your answer, and all you need to do then is take 2 divided by 5 to do the fraction portion, which is 4/10. All right, let's move on. So converting ratios to decimal numbers is similar to converting fractions to decimal numbers. A number cube is rolled once. Express the probability of rolling an even number as a decimal number. So if you have an even number, how many even numbers are there? Well, the number cube has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 in its sample space. The even numbers would be 2, 4, and 6. So you can see that the probability of rolling an even number is the same as 3/6, which is the same as 1/2. And if you didn't know already, 1/2 as a decimal would be 5/10. And if you wanted to check it, you would just take 1 divided by 2 or 3 divided by 6 even. So probabilities are often expressed as decimal numbers between 0 and 1. Since 3 of the 6 numbers on the number cube are even, the probability of rolling an even number is 3/6, which equals 1/2. We can convert 1/2 to a decimal by dividing 1 divided by 2. Thus, the probability of rolling an even number with one roll of a number cube is 5/10. All right, so let's look at the practice set here. Letter A, convert each fraction or mixed number to a decimal number, so 3/4 as a decimal number. That is the same as 3 divided by 4. I'm going to add a couple zeros for posterity there, and then I just need to throw the decimal straight up there. So now 3 divided by 4 would be 0. 4 will not fit in a basket that holds 3. 30 divided by 4 would be 7. 7 times 4 is 28. 28 taken away from 30 is 2. Bring this 0 down. This would be 20 divided by 4, which is 5. 5 times 4 is 20. There's nothing left over. The answer to 3/4 as a decimal would be 75 hundredths. Letter B, 4 1/5. So for letter B, you have 4 and the decimal. To find out what 1/5 is as a decimal, I need to divide 1 divided by 5. And I'm going to just add a decimal and a 0. This is still a value of 1. Decimal comes straight up in the answer. 1 divided by 5 is 0. 10 divided by 5 is 2. 2 times 5 equals 10. There's nothing left over. So this would equal, if I remember that there's a 4 as a whole number, 4 2/10. So 4 1/5 would be 4 2/10. Letter C, 1/8. So for letter C, I need to take 1 divided by 8, and I need to add some zeros. I'm just add a couple zeros there. Decimal comes straight up in the answer when dividing by a whole number. 1 divided by 8 is 0. 10 divided by 8 is 1. 8 times 1 is 8. Subtract that. That would be 2. Bring down this 0. 20 divided by 8 is 2. 2 times 8 is 16. 16 taken away from 20 equals 4. I need to add another 0. I need to bring it down. And now I have 40 divided by 8 equaling 5. 5 times 8 equals 40. And then I would subtract that, and that would be 0 left over. So this would be 125 thousandths for the final answer for 1/8 as a decimal. Letter D, 7/20. So for letter D, I just need to take 7 divided by 20. So I need to make sure it's in that order. I'm just going to add a couple zeros to start with. I can add more if I need them. I'm going to put a decimal straight up in the answer. 20 will not fit into 7. It will fit into 70. It won't fit in there 4 times, but it'll fit in there 3 times, and 3 times 20 is 60. 60 taken away from that would be that. I need to bring down the next 0. 100 divided by 20 would be 5. 5 times 20 would be 100, and there's nothing left over. So for 7/20, the decimal would be 35 hundredths. Another thing you could do, if you weren't just dividing it, you could recognize that 7/20 is the same as something over 100. And I could see that I could multiply that times 5, and I could multiply this times 5, and that would be 35 hundredths. And if you know how to read that fraction, you know that 35 hundredths looks like that. So you could look at it that way as well if you wanted to. There's a lot of ways to get to the answer in a math problem. Usually it's a very creative thing to get there in a different format. So never be stifled in your creativity in math. If you get to the same answer, it doesn't really matter. Letter E, 3 3/10. So if I've got 3/10, you know what? Honestly, there is nothing to do but if you know how to read this and you know how to translate that into a fraction, from a fraction to a decimal, 3 3/10. I don't even know what to say there. We can do this if you want to. 3/10 would be this, 10 divided by 3. Well, what does that look like? Well, 3 and then that, put the decimal right there. 10 will not fit into 3, but it will fit into 30 3 times. 3 times 10 is 30, and there's nothing left over. 3/10, and then I have to remember there was 3 wholes in front of that. So 3 3/10 is 3 3/10. That one was pretty basic and simple. Hopefully you got that. Letter F, 7/25. You know what? I just see that this one works so well to do this same method that I was doing over here, because I know that 25 times 4 equals 100. I also know that 7 times 4 equals 28. So now I know that this is the same as 28 hundredths as a decimal. I'm done. Now, if I didn't remember that, or if I didn't recognize that relationship to from turning 25 into 100 and being fair and balanced and turning this into 28 by multiplying it by what is equivalent to a fraction of 1, essentially. 4 over 4 is like multiplying it times 1 anyway. So 7/25 is 28 hundredths. They're the same value, same amount. So if I didn't know that, I would just simply have to take 7 divided by 25, which looks like this. Decimal right here. I might throw another 0 in. So 25 will not go into 7. It will go into 70. It'll go in there 2 times, which will get me to 50. Subtract that. That'd be 20. Bring down this 0. 200 and 25. If I did 4 25s, that would get me to 100. So I have to do 8 25s to get to 200. And I'd have nothing left over when subtracting that. 28 hundredths would be the answer as well. Letter G, you may use a calculator to convert these numbers to decimal numbers. So this one is nary a challenge. So if you use a calculator, that is fine on G, H, and I. So 11 divided by 16. So I'm going to do that. 11 divided by 16 equals, this would be the same as 6,875 ten-thousandths. Now do 31 32nds. I'm going to clear it out. 31 divided by 32 equals, in this case, it would be 96,875, and that would be 100 thousandths place for that one. And for letter I, 3 and 24/64. So the 3 I just have to ignore for a second. I do know that that's going to be the whole number in front of the decimal point, but the behind the decimal point is the 24 divided by the 64, which equals 375 thousandths. And letter J. In a bag are 3 red marbles. So let me just do that. 1, 2, 3. And 2 blue marbles. 1, 2. If Chad pulls 1 marble from the bag, what is the probability that the marble will be blue? Well, if the probability is a fraction, you're looking at a probability that the marble will be blue is 2 out of however many there are total in the bag, 5. So that's the fraction format. It says express the probability ratio as a fraction and as a decimal number. So I need to put the equivalent to 2/5 as a decimal, which is 2 divided by 5, and that is the same as 4/10. So that would be my answer for the probability that the marble will be blue. All right, that should be it today. Excellent work. Make sure that when you do lesson 74 in the written practice, you do 1 through 30, as you know how important it is to do all 30 problems for the practice from previous lessons. Have a great night, and we'll see you next time.